Hi guys, welcome back to the garage. We're on to part 3 of our Vespa PX rebuild. So today we're going to have a look at the gearbox, see what's worn. To be honest, if you've watched the previous videos, I don't think we're going to find out much. And then we're going to start putting it back together because the postman's been. I've got some lovely shiny new bits to put it all back together with. So, as usual, it's waiting for us on the bench. If you haven't seen the previous videos, 1 and 2, they're on a playlist, have a look. So, let's see what we've got, and then let's have a look at the gearbox. Right, the postman's been and delivered us some interesting bits. So, we have a gasket set, which is a genuine Piaggio one. I normally just use the aftermarket ones, but this wasn't a lot more expensive. So let's just see what we get in the actual factory set, see if it's any different from the aftermarket ones. I don't imagine for 1 minute it is. We get a nice list of part numbers, which mean nothing to me because I haven't got a parts book. Right. There we go. So, base gasket, crank house. Does feel slightly thicker than cheap aftermarket ones, to be honest, which is good. And then a selection of O-rings and our carb-based gaskets, gear selector gaskets. It should be the correct non-auto lube. Oh no, it is an auto lube one. No, I thought it wasn't going to be. Okay, it don't matter. Good, right, anyway, that should cover most things we need, I hope. And then I ordered a Koza clutch nut and a wavy washer, because I had no way of attaching the clutch because that was missing. And then in this little bag, there are lots of goodies. We have flywheel nut and washer, which was missing, our brake clips, one of which I lost, circlets for the gudgeon pin, a clutch pressure plate. It's the cut-off one, which I believe is for the 200s, but I think it'll fit, with a new brass bush which was missing, rear hub nut, and a Woodruff key for the flywheel side, which is also missing. So luckily PX bits are quite cheap, so all that lot didn't come to very much money at all. Can't remember the exact price, 20 quid or so, plus the gasket set, which was another 10 or 12 quid. So nice and cheap. And then I also ordered a set of crank seals. So we've got flywheel seal, main crank seal, the internal gearbox seal, plus various other rubber seals, which I'm not sure what they're for at the minute. I'll have to check. I'm assuming things like gear change, which are all good on my engine. Stuff like that. We'll work it out. I'll work it out. Probably. Right, so there we are. So that's all the stuff we need to rebuild our engine. So before we actually rebuild it, we just need to look at the gearbox. So we'll do that next. Right, the gearbox is temporarily held in the vise very, very gently. So the gears are loose up and down because I want to check the gap here between the, well, it could be between the washer and the gears, but anyway, it's easier to get underneath the clip in the gears, which works out on this one at 10 thou. Now I don't know the actual factory figure, but I believe it's meant to be between 6 and 16. Check your manual because it may depend on model. But anyway, 10 is very much between 6 and 16, so I'm quite happy with that. So we're going to put this back on the bench again and go from there. So let's get it back on the bench. Right, the gears are held on by a big circlip, and I've just remembered the circlip pliers I used to get this off, not this one, but previous PX boxes off, actually belonged to a mate of mine, which I forgot all about because this is very strong. So I'm going to give it a go with piston ring pliers, because my decent circlip pliers, and they are decent circlip pliers, I love these, can't remember what they're made by. Seeker, I don't know who Seeker are, but they're very good. Made in Germany, West Germany, which gives you an idea of how old they are. But the tips are very small. I'll give it a go, but I don't think it'll do it, because this is one tough circlip. No. So we'll have to try the piston ring circlip. Oh, that's nearly got it. As I said, this is one tough circlip. There we go. It'll be fun getting back on. Right, there we go. One circlip. Very slightly misaligned now, but that'll go back on. And then you have a washer. I'll come off with that gear. There we go, a washer. You can get different sizes of them to compensate for the clearance we measured at the bench. So let's get our gears off. And then there is a bottom circlip trapped by the cruciform, which is actually in very good condition. So let me just get something to wipe that with. And then we'll bring you in closer and show you this. Right, this could be slightly out of focus because the macro lens is very has a very short depth of field. But anyway, that's your cruciform, 4 sides obviously, that moves in and out to change your gears. And what happens is these get battered, obviously, because it's a fairly rough process, knocking all these into gear. Now this one, it's very, very slight marking just there. But to be honest, not enough to warrant changing it at this stage, I don't think. It's all in very good nick. If you do change it, let me just swap back to the other lens. Yeah, as I was saying, if you do change it, that unscrews from the cruciform. It's a left-hand thread, so you turn it the opposite direction to normal, and then that spins out of there, which I won't be doing because, as I say, there's nothing wrong with this. It's a very, very good shaft. Bearing surfaces are good, splines are excellent. Again, fits in with the low mileage concept. And then where the cruciform moves up and down those slots, they also get battered. And again, this one's showing slight markings, but nothing to worry me really. And then also, as well as checking the teeth, which are all fine, those are where the cruciform sits inside the gears, and they also lose their edges, so they need to be checked. And again, there's not a lot wrong with them either. So this is a pretty good gearbox really. So let's just bring you out a little bit. Again, I hesitated earlier taking it apart because when I was doing it, it didn't look right. Could just be me, I don't know. And now it's apart, it's too late to worry. But anyway, as far as I remember, There's a dish side on the smallest gear and a raised section. Now I think it goes, with the raised section pointing towards your gear selector. And then, on the next one, yeah. Raised again on the next one. And the raised section of the biggest gear goes in the opposite direction. So you've got 3 facing out, 1 facing in. I'm starting to confuse myself now. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that's right. So let's put our washer back on. And then I'll circle it. Which will be fun again, I'm sure. Right, I'm going to have to put this in the vise and hold it that way to put the circle clip on. There's no point you watching me struggle doing that. I'll bring it back in a second. Right, it actually popped straight in, unbelievably. So it went back in an awful lot easier than it came out. So I think I've got my gear spacing right. I think I'm pretty certain. So just to double check, it meshes up with that. Yes, and they all line up, don't they? Yep. Good. I did question myself for a minute there. I just thought I was going a bit mad. So, yeah, it probably was right when I took it apart and I wasn't really paying attention. But anyway, just as a matter of self-preservation for your mental health, what I should have done when I took it apart was mark each face as it came off. And then I wouldn't have gone through the last couple of minutes trying to work out whether I'd done it right or done it wrong. But anyway, there we are, it's back together. So, let's return to our cases. Right, everything's clean. As clean as I think it's going to be anyway. So the first job is to fit our internal seal. These are funny blue seals. So that's going to go in there. So we need something to drive it in with. And there are various drivers available. That one will do it, I think. This is going to be slightly difficult to show you because it's going to involve me knocking it in out of sight. So anyway, that's the outside. It's going to go in like that. It's not a seal I've used before, that one, but anyway. Presumably some reason why they changed to colour. Right, so that needs to go in there like that. And that isn't going to be deep enough. Right, bear with me 1 second. Right, that seal driver's no good. I'm going to go for a longer one. Slightly awkward with this being buried deep in here. The old external ones are an awful lot easier. Right, again, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm going to have to do it upright to get proper drift. Tight. But it's going. Very tight, in fact. There we go. No changes, it's in. Right. That bearing was sealed, of course, so we'd have to worry about. No, we're still slightly up there. Hold on 1 second. Well, slightly up on that corner. That's definitely down. Yep. Right. So next we need to fit our Christmas tree. So we need to fill this gap with our little rollers again. So we need some grease to hold them, and also to lubricate them while they're there. There they are, fiddly little blighters that they are. So I've got to feed them all in there and hope they don't fall out while I'm doing it. They are incredibly fiddly little things. You need quite a bit of grease to stop them rolling out again. Right. And then you've got to try and get them in there without them all falling out again. There we go. And then that's going to poke back through that hole in the casing, which I will lubricate. Can you still see that? Or have you just been looking at my head? Now it's a balancing act now between getting that in and not losing all your rollers. Hey, why did Vespa come up with this idea? No, I've got to pull that out again. Sorry, I thought I could get that in like that, but I can't. There we are. I thought I could get it in started, but I can't. So let's hope we don't lose them all now. There we go. Right, so they're all in. There we go. Lovely. And then on the front we've got our nut and peculiar shaped washer. In the shaft, which is difficult to show you, but in the shaft there is a slot for the lock washer. You just have to turn that into the right position. Can you see all any of that? It's very difficult to line this up so you can see it. Let's go that way again. Put that under there. Anyway, there's a tab on the bottom which fits in the slot, like so. Then your funny shaped washer. Right, and then your nut. Right, that's on enough now to stop the shaft coming out, so I'll just show it from this side, which is a slightly better view. Right, that'll do. Yep, lovely. Make sure that's free, which it is. Now we need to knock the tab washer down, which we will do with a small punch. There we go. So next up, we will fit our gearbox. Which has to go through our seal, obviously, so we will apply some grease to our seal because we don't want it catching. And then we're going to just drive the gearbox through. So we have to carefully put it through the seal, like so. And then we have to tap it through. Now we can't, obviously we can't hit on the gear selector, because that'll just break it. So we need something big enough to go over there to apply the impact on there. So let me just see what I've got. There we are, 3/4 inch socket will do. Make sure it's lining up with the Christmas tree, which it is. Getting there. It's quite tight. You can see where it lines up with the teeth, so you can judge how far in it's got to go. See it? Tone changed again. Lovely. All our gears line up with our Christmas tree perfectly. We're clear of the cutouts for the kickstart. Yeah, that's good. Lovely. Everything turns fine. Beautiful. Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Right, okay. So next up is our crank oil seal. Right, I'd very much like to have shown you the crank seal going in, but the camera decided to turn itself off when I wasn't looking. So, thanks to the wonder of modern technology, you're not going to see it. So, basically it's a metal seal with the rubber part in the middle. There is a particular Vespa tool which fits the seal and the bearing, and it didn't want to go in with that. So I resorted to my old seal driver and it went in absolutely fine with that. So anyway, it's flush with the case all the way around, that's all that matters. The bearing's still free to move. Well, I say it is. Yes, it is. The bearing's still free to move, which actually needs oiling before we assemble it on the other side, but anyway. So now we have to fit our crankshaft. Now, when I took the crankshaft out, if you watched the video that is, I knocked it out gently with a soft hammer, which is fine because the crank is obviously stuck on the bearing, and therefore the impact of taking it out doesn't push any of the forces through the crank pin, which could knock the crank out around, or it minimises the chances enormously anyway. But you can't refit it by tapping it in, because obviously you then would be transferring all the forces across the crank, which would end up distorting it. Can't find my words today for some reason. Anyway, the simple way out of that is to use an old clutch nut, a bit of threaded bar, and a nut and a washer. The washer appears to be missing, we'll find out in a minute. So, just to ease things, I will apply a small amount of grease on the bearing and the seal, just because it's going to have to pull through there, and we want to minimise the chance of anything catching. And then we're going to turn the case round, because all the action is going to be on this side now. So we insert the crank as far as it will go. It won't go in very far, obviously, like so. And then we attach our homemade tool. I think you can buy these, obviously, but this is a homemade tool. And then I've got to find something then that will sit over that inner surface so I can draw the crank through. So let me have a look and see what we can find. Oh, that would do nicely if it wasn't for that oil pump drive. Something slightly smaller. Right, I haven't got anything to hand, so I'm going to take that oil pump drive off, because we don't actually need it anymore because we no longer have auto lube. Obviously if I had auto lube I could just put it back on when I'm finished. So I need to get that clip off. Right, hunt through the box and I finally come up with something I think might do it.
These holes are tiny. I'm going to turn it this way down. Sorry, I'm getting in the way. Let's apply some downward pressure. Yeah. Isn't it easy when you're not filming? Right, and off comes that drive. To be honest, I won't bother fitting that again now because Autolube is not part of this project. Or this engine build, I should say, not project. Right, so start again. Put a crank in, or as much as it'll go anyway. And attach our homemade. And that will then sit over the inner bearing like that. Because the point of interference between the crank and the bearing is that inner race. So that supports the inner race. And now all we need is a large washer. Or in this case, 2 large washers. Make sure that's on there. It's actually a bit long, this. Make sure the socket is acting directly on the inner race, which it is. Right, this one's really quite tight. It was quite tight coming out, if I remember rightly. So I'm having to hold the conrod eye slightly to try and give myself a bit more leverage, just to stop the crank turning. I'm just holding the conrod eyes enough to ease that massively. In fact, it's just really quite simple now. Normally they're not quite this tight. Well, I haven't found them to be quite this tight. And that's tight. So, if we take that off, our crank is in. Hurrah! And no need to knock anything. Lovely. Lovely jubbly. Right now, if you look through, right, there's no way I've able to show you this, but if you look through the hole in the crank, let me get a light. It is actually possible to see the seal. And you can work your way around and check the seal's good. But this is lovely and smooth, so. Yeah, lovely. Right, so we're in. And that is that for this video. So there we go, it's coming together. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, onward and upward.